Alan gave her a rare morning hug goodbye. As his hand moved down her back, he noticed something strange. She wasn't wearing any underwear. But this time it didn't turn him on. Alan lifted her skirt and asked, almost shouting, "Sarah, why aren't you dressed right?" Sarah stepped away from him. "You'll understand everything tonight," she said and rushed out the door. Alan stood there, shocked. Then he grabbed his phone from the kitchen table and sent a quick message. "Alan, she's gone. Looks like something big is happening today." Emma replied, "My guy will watch her." This all started 2 days ago when Alan was working the night shift and was called to a minor car accident. After ensuring the victims were stable, they took a brief break. Alan headed to the men's room. That hit him there. He felt a sudden, sharp pain. He let out an involuntary cry of agony, doubling over in pain. Emergency technician Brendan, hearing the commotion, rushed in. "Alan. What's wrong?" Alan was doubled over. Brendan peered in and grimaced at the greenish discharge in the urinal. "That doesn't look good at all," Brendan said. "You know what this means, right?" Alan nodded, still wincing in pain. "I understand that it's very delicate. I'll save it." "Don't worry, Alan." "Thanks, Brendan. I appreciate it. I'll go to the nearby clinic in the morning. Don't want to make it public in our hospital." He went back to his office. When his shift ended in the morning, he went to Mount Sinai Hospital nearby, where he knew no one he knew would see him. The waiting room was empty and they quickly took him in for tests. An hour later, Alan sat nervously in a small room when a nurse came in. She looked at him with disgust while checking his vitals. "The doctor will be in soon," she said. A few minutes later, an older doctor walked in. "Mr. Miller?" "I'm Dr. Smith," he said, sitting down. "I have some bad news. Your tests show you have a serious sexually transmitted disease." Alan looked at him. "Is it chlamydia or gonorrhea?" he asked calmly. "You have chlamydia," the doctor replied. "I'll prescribe strong antibiotics, but you need to avoid any sexual activity for at least a week after finishing the treatment. If the symptoms don't go away, see your regular doctor." He paused. "I hate to ask, but I need to know about your recent sexual partners for contact tracing purposes." "Just one," Alan said quietly. "My wife." The doctor's expression softened slightly. "I see. Well, she'll need to be tested and treated as well, even if she's asymptomatic. Untreated chlamydia can lead to serious complications. I have to report your case to the health department." Alan's mind was reeling as he left the hospital. Sarah has given him an STD. Alan called his parents. His father answered cheerfully, "Hey there, son. Shouldn't you be at work?" "Dad, I've got a problem. Can I come over?" "Of course. We'll put on some coffee. See you later." Alan and his sister Denise had grown up in a loving but strict religious household. Their parents had instilled strong moral values, including abstinence before marriage. Alan had followed those beliefs closely and stayed a virgin until his wedding night with Sarah at 23. Sarah was understanding of his lack of experience and taught him how to please her in bed. Their sex life was good, though not very passionate. A year into their marriage, they had their first daughter, Lorna. 14 months later, Gloria was born. After that, Sarah had surgery to prevent more children, happy with their family of 4. Alan parked at his parents' house, preparing himself for the tough talk ahead. His father welcomed him with a warm hug at the door. "Come on in, son," he said. "Your mother's made some coffee." Alan hugged his mother in the kitchen before they all sat down at the dining table. After saying grace, his father looked at him with concern. "What's bothering you, Alan?" Alan took a deep breath. "I just came from the doctor. I have chlamydia." "Oh my," his mother whispered. His father's face grew serious. "Were you unfaithful to Sarah?" "No, Dad. Never." His father nodded, trusting him. "I see. So what's next?" Alan sighed. "I think divorce is my only option now." His mother worried about how it would affect Lorna and Gloria, but Alan reassured her the girls would understand in time. His father nodded. "Well, adultery is a valid reason for divorce in the Bible. Let me call Emma Hawkins. She's a family law attorney from our church." She'll be able to advise you on the next steps. She helped our friend Peter when he discovered his wife was cheating on him with 2 security guards of her boss. I didn't tell you that story before, but perhaps now is a good time to share it. You're not alone in this. Be strong. Alan felt a wave of relief as his father made the call, grateful for his parents' unwavering support. Within minutes, he had an appointment with Emma that afternoon. Bring your financial records and tax returns for the last couple years, his father advised. Emma will need to review all of that. Thanks, Dad. I'll go home and gather everything now. His mother hugged him tightly before he left. We're here for you, sweetheart. This will all work out in God's plan. At home, Alan dug through their files, looking for the documents Emma would need. He realized that about 8 years ago, Sarah had insisted on filing separate tax returns. Now he understood why. Her paperwork showed big bonuses and commissions he hadn't known about, with almost $4 million hidden away. Alan's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, working late tonight. Don't wait up. His jaw tightened as he replied with a short, Oklahoma. Sarah worked as a stockbroker on Wall Street, and late dinners with clients and attending company parties were normal for her job. But now, Alan saw those late nights differently. He gathered the paperwork and went to Emma's office. The receptionist, a beautiful blonde, greeted him with a warm smile. I have a 14:30 appointment with Emma Hawkins, Alan said. She smiled and led him back to Emma's office. The attorney stood to shake his hand. Alan, it's good to see you. Can I get you some coffee? That would be great, thanks. Emma turned to her receptionist. 2 coffees please, Sarah. And some of those butter pecan creamers if we have any left. So Alan, your father called to give me a heads up. What exactly is going on? Ellen said. I found out this morning that my wife Sarah has been cheating on me. I'm so sorry. I always thought you two had such a solid marriage. So did I, Alan said. He recounted the events of the morning, ending with his discovery of Sarah's secret bank account. Emma listened intently, taking notes. When Alan finished, she leaned forward. All right, let me break down how divorce works in this state. It's not about justice. It's about money. How much you have and how much her lawyer can take from you. Even with clear adultery, you need rock-solid proof. What about the STD? Emma shook her head. Her lawyer could claim you contracted it elsewhere. It all comes down to what a judge believes. And the hidden money? She could claim it was meant to be a surprise retirement fund or something. It looks like she's planning to leave, but it would be hard to prove that's her intention. Alan slumped in his chair. So I'm stuck. Not at all, Emma said. I know a great private investigator who can start watching her today. If she's still cheating, we'll catch her in the act. It's not cheap, but the evidence can be used in court. Do you want to go ahead? Let's do it. Great. I'll need all of Sarah's vehicle information. Make, model, license plate. Any idea where she might be right now? Hold on, Alan said, pulling out his phone. I installed a tracker app when she lost her cell last year. Let me see if it's still active. He pulled up the app and started searching. Got her, he said after a moment. Looks like she's at a house up north. He showed Emma the address. Perfect, Emma said, jotting it down. She called her PI and emailed him the details while Alan waited anxiously. All set, Emma said, hanging up. We should know soon if anything's going on. Now let's talk logistics. You have 2 teenage daughters, correct? Yes, Lorna is 14 and Gloria is 13. Do you want to pursue custody? Absolutely. It won't be easy. Courts usually side with the mother, but we can try, Emma said. Who's been taking care of the kids most of the time? Me for sure, Alan replied. Sarah's hardly ever home in the evenings. That's a good start. Are you sure the girls are biologically yours? Alan felt a bit offended. Pretty sure. Does that really matter? I'm on their birth certificates. I've raised them their whole lives. I understand, Emma said gently. But knowing for certain can help our case. Here's a lab that does quick, discrete DNA testing if you want to be absolutely sure. She handed him a business card. What about your house? It's in a family trust. No mortgage. Excellent. That simplifies things. We'll still need to divide other assets 50-50. I'll give you a detailed checklist of everything we need to account for. Alan nodded, feeling overwhelmed. Is there anything else I should do right away? Not at the moment, Emma replied. We'll get the paperwork started, but let's wait and see what the PI finds first. Go ahead and start on that asset checklist though. Should I confront Sarah about the STD? Not a bad idea, Emma mused. Tell her to get tested. It protects you legally if you inform her, Emma said, handing Alan a checklist and a lab card. That's all for now. Take care of these things and we'll update you on what the private investigator finds. Her face softened. And Alan? I know this is tough, but don't do anything impulsive. Things will get better. Thanks, Emma, Alan said, shaking her hand. He paid the receptionist and left, stopping by the lab to pick up a DNA test kit, before swinging by the bank to verify the information about Sarah's secret account. Back home, Alan sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of coffee. Most guys would be drowning their sorrows in alcohol right now, but Alan had never touched the stuff. It was a family rule he'd always respected. Back to that morning when he was embracing his wife, showing no sign that he was aware of her cheating. He suspected that Sarah was about to make her move. Later in the afternoon, the front door burst open and his daughters came bounding in. Daddy, you're home. Lorna gave him a big hug. Are you okay? Gloria asked. Why aren't you at work? Alan sighed. Can you pack overnight bags? You're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a couple days. What's wrong? Did you and Mom have a fight? Not exactly, Alan hedged. Something's wrong, but we haven't thought about it. That might come later. Lorna's eyes widened with sudden understanding. You found out she's cheating, didn't you? Lorna asked. What makes you think that? Alan replied. Lorna looked down, feeling guilty. I've overheard some of Mom's phone calls lately. She giggles like a schoolgirl. It felt strange. Alan hugged her tightly. It's okay that you didn't tell me earlier, sweetheart. You can always come to me about anything, he said, pulling both of them into a warm hug. But first I need to swab your cheeks. DNA test? Gloria asked, eyeing the kid on the table. My lawyer's idea, Alan explained. You don't think we're really yours? Lorna's voice quavered. Of course I do. But we need to be 100% certain for legal reasons. So you're really getting divorced? Alan nodded sadly. There's no chance you could forgive her? Gloria asked. Alan's jaw tightened. Not likely. She left me a parting gift. After collecting DNA samples from the girls and himself, Alan sent them upstairs to pack. Don't forget your homework, he reminded them. At his parents' house, Alan hugged the girls goodbye and promised to call them later. After dinner, Alan's phone rang. It was Emma. We have some information from the private investigator. Your wife has been with 3 different men since 1 p.m. Jesus, he whispered. What kind of evidence do we have? I'm sending everything to your email now, Emma replied. She confirmed it was more than enough for the divorce case. Alan hung up and checked his email, going straight to the audio file. A man's voice, I see you're married. The clink of rings against a glass. Sarah's laugh. For now. A pause. You're wearing a ring too. My wife and I have an open marriage, the man explained. Well, mine's not open, Sarah replied. But I take my liberties where I can get them. Your husband doesn't know. No, he doesn't, Sarah admitted casually. Alan's jaw clenched. He has no idea what kind of woman he married, he thought bitterly. The man's voice again. What's the deal? Trouble in paradise? Sarah's smug tone made Alan's skin crawl. He'd better be fine. I taught him everything he knows. You taught him? Was he a virgin when you got married or something? Believe it or not, Sarah replied. A total virgin. Can you imagine? He's a real goody two-shoes. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't even curse. He'd probably faint if I said damn around him. The man laughed. Sounds like a real square. Why do you stay with him? Do you love the guy? I guess sort of, Sarah said dismissively. He's good with the kids, doesn't ask questions when I'm out late. But God, he's so boring. The kids are his. Who knows? Who cares? Sarah replied flippantly. He thinks they are, that's what matters. What's next for you after that? Living it up, Sarah said gleefully. Maybe hit up some orgies. Retire somewhere tropical with my secret bank account. Who knows? Got any plans this weekend? I know a couple guys who'd be interested in joining us. Alan stopped the recording. He slumped back in his chair. 15 years of his life wasted on Sarah. His phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Hi, he answered flatly. Alan. Are you okay? You sound different. Rough day, he replied. I'm finishing up work. I got another big client. I'll be home in about an hour. And I'm still without underwear. Are you waiting? Sure. Love you, she said cheerfully. Me too, he replied before ending the call. He wondered if she noticed he hadn't said, I love you back, but he realized he didn't care. Alan printed out copies of the most damaging photos and sat at the kitchen table, preparing for the confrontation. 1 hour passed, then 2. Still no sign of Sarah. Growing worried despite himself, Alan called her cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. He left a message and sent a text. No response. Nearly 4 hours after her call, the home phone rang. Alan answered warily. Alan Miller speaking. Mr. Miller, this is Angela Barnes calling from Grace Hospital. Your wife has been in an accident. Can you come down here immediately? Alan's heart raced. Is she okay? What happened? I'm sorry, I can't disclose any details over the phone, Angela replied. Her doctor will speak with you when you arrive. Just ask for the courtesy desk when you get here. Alan pocketed the envelope of photos and raced to the hospital. At the courtesy desk, he gave Sarah's name to the middle-aged receptionist. She checked her computer and asked a colleague, Would you please escort Mr. Miller to the ICU? Upstairs, a police officer came over to him. Mr. Miller, I'm Officer Simpson. I was called about your wife's accident. What happened? Alan asked. A motorcycle went between cars and hit her while she was crossing the street. The driver was a broker who was on drugs. I'm sorry. He handed Alan a card. Call if you need anything. Before Alan could ask more questions, a doctor approached. Alan Miller, I'm Dr. Blake. How's my wife? She has multiple fractures, internal injuries, and severe head trauma. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to reduce brain swelling. He paused. There's more. Did you know about her chlamydia? I just found out this morning. Are you being treated? Alan nodded. Good. But there's a chance she might be HIV positive too. We're running tests now. Have you been tested? Not yet, Alan replied. You need to see your doctor as soon as possible for testing, Dr. Blake advised. If you test positive with the right medication and safe practices, you can still live a fairly normal life. Alan nodded, feeling numb. How long will she be here? It's hard to say right now. It could be weeks, maybe longer. Dr. Blake led him to Sarah's room. Alan's breath caught in his throat when he saw her. She was covered in bandages, and one leg was in a cast up to her hip. Her face was bruised and swollen with several cuts stitched closed. She looked like a war survivor. Alan said a silent prayer, then slowly removed his wedding ring. He placed it in the envelope with the incriminating photos, writing Sarah's name on it. Nurse, he called softly, can you make sure she gets this when she wakes up? Of course, the nurse replied, just put it there on the tray. Alan took one last look at Sarah. Despite his anger, seeing her like this still hurt. He carefully removed her rings, pocketing them. Goodbye, Sarah, he whispered. At home exhausted, he collapsed into bed. Over the next 3 weeks, Alan found a 2-bedroom ground-floor apartment with a garage for Sarah, paying the deposit and first 2 months' rent from her share of their accounts. He moved everything to the new place. 2 weeks after that fateful night shift at the hospital, Alan got the all-clear from his doctor. The physical pain was subsiding, but he knew the emotional wounds would take much longer to heal. 3 weeks after the accident, Sarah had awakened from her induced coma. Alan dropped Lorna and Gloria at his parents' house, explaining where he was going. Then he took a deep breath and headed to the hospital. As he approached Sarah's room, he spotted the doctor near the nurse's station. A man in a brown jacket holding a manila envelope stood nearby, clearly the process server. "How is she?" "She's awake and her vital signs are stable," the doctor replied. "The antibiotics have cleared the infection. We're just keeping an eye on her now." Alan walked into the room, with the process server following quietly behind. Sarah looked up and noticed the open envelope Alan had left on her bedside table. "Hi Alan," she said. "Sarah," Alan responded coldly. "I guess you all found out," Sarah said, pointing to the envelope. "Yes," Alan confirmed. "How did you know?" "You passed your illness to me. And yes, I followed you after that. I have evidence, pictures, video, audio. More than enough to prove infidelity." Alan nodded to the bailiff, who stepped forward. "Are you Sarah Miller?" he asked formally. "Yes." He handed her the envelope, took a photo with his phone and said, "You've been served," before leaving the room. Sarah's face crumpled. "Couldn't even wait until I was out of the hospital." "No," Alan said firmly. "You wanted to run away. I just moved your schedule up a few years." "Do the girls know?" "Yes. They're not your biggest fans right now. That's why they're not here. And don't worry about being saddled with them. I'm seeking full custody with some visitation if they want to see you. But right now they don't want anything to do with you. I can't blame them at all. And I guess you hate me too," she said. "How long will I be in here?" "The doctor wants to keep you for at least another week," Alan replied. "Where will I go when I'm released?" "I rented an apartment for you. All your things have been moved, and the utilities are in your name." He handed her an envelope. "This is your half of our joint accounts, minus the deposit and first 2 months' rent." She nodded, taking the envelope with shaking hands. "Oh, and I know about your escape fund," Alan added. "My lawyer has frozen the account. Sign the divorce papers and she'll unlock it. Minus my half, of course." Shaw crossed Sarah's face. "I'll fight you for it." "That would be unwise," Alan warned. "Unless you want all that evidence made public. It's quite graphic. Have your lawyer review the papers. Sign them and we can end this sham of a marriage quickly." "I'm so sorry," Sarah said. "I don't believe you," Alan replied flatly. "Sign the papers, Sarah. Let's end this." As he turned to leave, Sarah called out, "Can I call the girls?" Alan paused at the door. "You can try any time," he said. "But they might not answer." "I understand," she said. "Thank you for that, at least." Alan left the hospital and noticed some nurses looking at him disapprovingly. He shrugged it off. Their opinions didn't matter to him anymore. Epilogue. The divorce was finalized quickly. Alan tested negative for HIV, so he felt relieved. Sarah tested negative too. Emma gave him a check for $2 million, which was half of Sarah's secret account. Alan put that money into college funds for the girls. Life went on. The girls eventually talked to Sarah again and she apologized. It took a year before they spent time with her again. Second story. I'm worried that my girlfriend might still be cheating on me. I messed up first by cheating, which ruined our relationship, and I know it's my fault. We've talked about how to move forward, and she even suggested an open relationship. I agreed to it to avoid arguing because I love her. We have a child together and I don't want to walk away and put him through a broken home like I had. But then I found out she had sex with someone else and it really hurt me. I felt so many strong emotions that I started acting in ways I never thought I would. I'm always depressed, even though I know it's because of my own actions. I love her though, she's my best friend and family along with our son. I told her I wasn't comfortable with the open relationship, and she said it would stop. But months went by and I kept catching her texting other guys or sending nudes. It breaks my heart every time because I think we're in a good place, but then I have a gut feeling something's off, so I check her phone. She often hides it from me or keeps it under her when she sleeps, but I can usually grab it because she sleeps deeply. I see all the things she's doing when she's not with me. She works a lot at a bar and does DoorDash on the side, so I don't get to see her much. When she comes home and goes to sleep, I find stuff in her phone. Then she gets mad at me for invading her privacy, which I understand, but she ignores the fact that she's still cheating by entertaining other guys. It's heartbreaking because everything we talked about feels like lies. I caught her again and now we're on a week-long break. She went to stay at a friend's house and promised me she wouldn't cheat, but I can't shake the feeling that she just wants freedom to do whatever she wants. Am I supposed to be okay with that? I have no proof she's cheating. I want to trust her because it would make things easier for me, but it's hard since she gives me no real reassurance. Sometimes what she says feels like a lie and I don't know what to think. Do I just sit here and deal with my dark thoughts and pretend I'm okay? I want my life to be with her, but it feels like I have to let her do what she wants to keep her. Maybe I'm just meant to feel broken forever.